Shaar Hagilgulim. We're in the second chapter, Hagdama Bet. Assur's Latzachat Kol Hakim. They should find their Bashert. This week is the week of the Sigulot for finding the Bashert. Fifth Aliyah.
We find the first Shadchan in
the first Shadchan is Eliezer. Eliezer is very powerful. Eliezer came back in the Gilgul as Gadaev ben Yefuneh. By the way, why is he called? It's really his father's name is Yefuneh. Why is he called Ben Yefuneh? Because Gadaev is Eliezer, says the Shaar Hagilgulim.
Okay.
And Eliezer was cursed. Abraham told him, "You're cursed. You're Arur. You're Canaan. You're from the children of Canaan."
He came out from his curse.
I don't think Canaans were black, but
they weren't.
No,
Crispy.
They were crispy. Yeah.
Really?
Semitic. No, not Semitic.
You weren't Semitic.
But they were. I don't think they were black. Who was the one who took him out of his curse? Believe it or not, our great grandfather Lavan. Lavan said, "Bo Baruch Hashem." Once he said that, it was like the Klipa was admitting that you're Kadosh now, you're Tahor. And he told him, Anochi piniti habayit. I cleaned the house of Avodah Zarah. Piniti. That's why Gadaev ben Yefuneh.
It's funny how the Avram says.
But really, it's Gadaev Kenizi. He's from Kenaz, the sons of Kenaz. Why is he called Yefuneh? Because he was owing his Shorosh Neshama to Lavan, who said, Anochi piniti habayit. Go ahead.
It says it's very interesting how we speak last parasha, and it says Abraham told Ishmael and Eliezer to stay with the donkey. And we're saying the donkey. We're not even close to the level of Eliezer. The guy who went alive up.
Back then,
he was such a high level.
Eliezer was still Canaan. It was still Arur, and during the Akedah. Right. After the Akedah, when he broke his Yetzer Hara and he could have made a shidduch. I'm sure his daughter was a very big tzaddikus. Right. You understand? He was Avraham Avinu. Eliezer was his Rosh Hashiva.
Yeah.
You understand? He must have been a very high individual.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
And by the way, Benayahu ben Yoyada is from the Shorosh Neshama of Eliezer. Benayahu ben Yoyada, the King Solomon's general who went into the Sheleg and killed the Ari. Shaar Hagilgulim says this. All this juicy stuff in Shaar Hagilgulim is at the end.
That was
the beginning, huh? No, Ben Ish Chai named all of his books. It's a common misconception after Benayahu, because when he went to his kever, he did a special yichud and he was actually able to converse with Benayahu, and he had a big hasaga. But actually, I heard from Rav Mazuz in his book that actually he was a Gilgul of Yoav ben Tziruyah who was killed by Benayahu. And that was an avera, by the way, that Benayahu killed him. That's why they came back as Yoash HaMelech and Zechariah HaNavi. Let's not get into it right now. You guys need an introduction to know who these people were to appreciate that Gilgul. But so this week's parasha we have, and Lavan, by the way, the Shorosh Neshama of Lavan is a lot of tzaddikim came from there.
Really?
Including 3 out of the 10 martyrs came from the Shorosh Neshama of Lavan. One of them was supposed to be Mashiach, because Lavan's Neshama had a lot of Kedusha. He was a big klipa.
So it's not really physically, it was like on the spiritual level. So
yeah, but basically let's say
not his descendants, you're talking about something else.
Right, Shorosh Neshama. Understand? So me and you, as we're talking right now, we're doing something in Shamayim. We're putting orot together. We're making a zivuk.
Wait, but Lavan had the 2 daughters, but where were all the Shvatim coming from?
Exactly. So imagine.
So that's what it is.
Imagine. Yeah. And Lavan was Bilam. And then Bilam came back as Naval HaKarmeli, who was David HaMelech's arch nemesis. And he was from Shevet Yehuda, and then Naval came back as Barzilai HaGiladi. He was an old man. When David was running away from Avshalom, Barzilai fed him. That means he got even more tikkun as Barzilai, but Barzilai had a problem. He loved women. He was lahut achari haznut. That's what Rashi says. Barzilai. He was Jewish. He was Giladi. He saved David when he was running away from Avshalom. Naval didn't want to give David food. Barzilai fixed that by sustaining David. And then Barzilai came back as from that Shorosh Neshama of Lavan as 3 kings. King Asa, huge king of David HaMelech Tzaddik. Yehoshaphat HaMelech, also a huge king. Then he came back as Yehoyakim and Yehoyachim. That's the king that was in Babylon, that he became Choser B'tshuva in jail, and he brought his wife down, and she was a nida. He said, take her back. And they were together while they were standing, and she got prayed. And then he had a son, Zerubbabel, who took the Jews back to Israel. He was also from Lavan, Shorosh Neshama of Lavan. So we're talking about a serious Shorosh Neshama over here of Lavan. Lavan was a huge Neshamot. That's besides Leah and Rachel. Besides that, they were his daughters. Understand? Same time, the Rishut of Lavan was legendary. La'akor et hakol. He wanted to destroy all of us from the shortage.
His little man Bilha also his daughters,
Also,
right?
yeah, from the slave.
Right, but daughters, his daughters.
Yeah, all of them were his daughters. Would you imagine?
All Shvatim.
All of them from Lavan. Exactly. So let's get into the Hagidama bet. We're not going to go so deep into it today, but whatever we can. Beseder, and we'll have a small review next time we meet on Hagdama, so we don't forget the ideas that we learned. Okay? Beseder Kinisat HaNeran. What's Neran? Nefesh, Ruach, Neshama. B'tchilat Gilgulehem. B'pam HaRishona HaDasha. What is the Seder, the order how the Nefesh, Ruach, and Neshama come into the human being? Because it doesn't come in right away. By the way, just to say this, in Shaar Hagilgulim, it makes it sound, Gabriel, as if you don't have those parts of your soul. As you go in your life, you earn them. It's like getting points, and you level up. You get them. But in Etz Chaim, he has a different understanding. That you were born with all the parts of your neshama. When you level up, it's like you're revealing it.
They kind of hidden.
They're hidden. They're blocked, and you have to unlock that.
And then they
Exactly. That's how the Ari learns it in Shaar HaAkudim, in Etz Chaim. In Shaar Hagilgulim, he makes it sound towards the whole book that as if like it's never in you and you earn it.
They come inside.
They come inside. But in Etz Chaim, it's not that. They're all inside of you. You just have to.
So which one is right?
I think the most common accepted view is
It's not in you.
that it is in you,
It's
and you're just unlocking it.
Well, then how is it like sometimes a person can have a ruach but he doesn't have a nefesh?
So that person,
Because
no.
it's different nefesh.
So that's what I'm talking about right now is the first time you're born.
So every Gilgul afterwards you don't
Then
have
that's when he's talking about. But if you're a chadasha, how do you get the new parts, the nefesh and neshama? שיתבהר בעזרת השם. הנה בעת שנולד גוף האדם, when a human being's body is born, ויוצא לאוויר העולם, comes out to the אוויר, to the world, נכנסת בו הנפש שלו, his nefesh is unlocked. ואם יוכשרו מעשיו, and if his deeds are even kosher, more kosher, he does more mitzvot. When I say his deeds become kosher, it's talking about doing more mitzvot aseh. So you could say, how many times can I do the same shacharit over and over? There's different levels of how do you do shacharit, different levels of how to wear tefillin, different re'utad libas, different kavanot, different wills in doing it. You understand? Yiskeh v'yikanes bo haruach, and he will be married and have his ruach. Betashlum shnat ha-13, when you were 13 years old. That means really when you're 13, you're supposed to have your ruach already. Ruach. Sha'az nikra ish gamur. Once you have your ruach, then you're a real man. That's why he's now a bar mitzvah. When you're a nefesh is really associated with the nukva. Right? Because in the 5 worlds, what does nefesh correspond to? Asiyah. Asiyah in the 5 parts sufim is what? The nukva.
Nukva, what is it?
The female, the shechina.
So nukva is
Nekeva, from Lashon nekeva. So it's the female, it's Hashem's, it's like the light of Hashem, the revelation of Hashem as a mother. Alright? The nukva.
It's a base or something, it's some kind of base.
It's the lowest part. It's the nefesh, it's the woman part. You understand? So when you have your nefesh, even though you're a boy, you do mitzvot. You're not chayav because you don't have yet your ruach. Once you have your 13, why are you a bar mitzvah at 13? Because that's when you're supposed to get your ruach at least. And once you have your ruach, now you're an ish.
If you don't have the ruach, then you're not.
Technically speaking, you're still chayav. Mitzad ma. Mitzad that the Torah says you're already an ish. But spiritually speaking, you're supposed to reach your ruach at that point. Spiritually, obviously, what 13-year-old has a ruach? Maybe the Vilna Gaon. person could live his whole life and maybe at the end he'll get his ruach. Alright? Once you're 20 years old, b'tashlum shnat ha'esrim, then you get your neshama. So when you're 20 years old is the neshama. It's a very high level. Neshama already pachti no averot.
At 20 years old.
At 20 years old.
Somebody,
This is first time you're in this world.
Still, it's
Avalim lo
short
tiken.
time.
It's short time. I mean, it's not that hard to get.
Somebody have to lock you in a bed. I mean, that's for 20 years and not coming out from there.
Did you guys see the video I sent with the Beit HaMikdash?
It's 1 hour each, but it's beautiful.
Oh my god. My kids saw it. I saw it.
Well, not you was watching.
All hour you saw it. And it's in English. The Hebrew one is better. I like the voice. But it's amazing how they did it. I put a link of the whole Avodat Yom Kippurim. You seen that before? It's amazing. With animation. אבל אם לא תיקן, let's say you didn't fix your ruach. לא תיכנס בו הנשמה. Your neshama won't go in. If the neshama won't rest on a ruach that's not fully mitukan, not fully fixed, not fully completed. ויהיה בו נפש ורוח בלבד. That guy will only have a nefesh and a ruach. וכן אם לא תיקן את הנפש, so too if you didn't fix or finish your nefesh, so you will only have a nefesh. That means even though the age, when you get 20 and 13, it's that age, you're ready to get that. But if the previous part that you have is not fully completed yet, then the ruach and neshama will not rest on an incompleted part. And you will be bli ruach and neshama, v'yisher ruach and neshama, ba'ata yedu HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So where's your ruach and neshama? They're in Gan Eden. They stay in Gan Eden. There's a place for each one of them. However, if you didn't fix your nefesh completely, and you die, let's say a person died, he still didn't even fix his nefesh. His nefesh is in him, he died like that. Then he has to come back and add Gilgul.
Yeah, what if Mashiach already here?
That's why he's not here yet. Ad kama pa'amim, many times he could come back. Ad shetizdachech kol tzarcha legamrei, that means your nefesh will keep on coming back until it finishes its tikkun. But once you fix your nefesh and you're already a migulgal, you won't get your ruach. Since you fix the nefesh by a gilgul, the ruach won't come down to you. You have to die, and then the ruach will come down inside
Unless.
That's what you're talking about? But that's only for people from Kain and Hevel. Let's not jump the gun. He says, but there is a cases where you could get your ruach. You have to that person has to die. So one second, let's repeat the case. The guy only has a nefesh. Couple of times he comes back with his nefesh till he fixes it. Now he cannot, since he's migulga, he's reincarnated, he won't get his ruach. Why? Because the ruach, which is the first time, doesn't want to match together with the nefesh, which is already here a couple of times. So that person has to die. And the nefesh will come back in a new body with the ruach right away. So now the person will be born with his nefesh and ruach. And let's say, and if a person fixes the ruach, now he has to get his neshama, but he won't get his neshama yet. Now he has to die. Now we'll get his neshama. But let's say he had his nefesh and his ruach, velotiken. He didn't fix his ruach. He didn't fulfill it. He didn't complete his job. There's a lot of time to complete it. There's a lot of time. You have 70, 80 years, but it's not enough to complete the ruach.
It's not the only thing you do in this life, you know.
That's the problem. No, by the way, you should know that your work, all these things, those are meant to help you complete your tikkun. Why? If you didn't work, you would have your parnasah right away. What would you do with all your free time?
Study.
Mamash. The fact that you have the work means you won't study. If you would study, Hashem wouldn't give you the work. You get it? This is Victor Miller. That book that you bought? That's that. That's where I got that from. Avigdor Miller says, the reason why Hashem gives you work is the biggest blessing. Because if you wouldn't have had the work, you would have been off the path completely. The fact that you have the work and your mind is busy, it's a mitzvah. Earning a livelihood is a mitzvah. Why not? To do tzedakah, to do this, to eat, to say brachot. Right? It's the means of doing a mitzvah. That means you're finishing your tikkun faster. And during your work, your job, every time you're not cutting somebody with a razor. Right? Every time you don't get angry at the kids. You never get angry. Every time, those are all fixing your nefesh. You understand? Could be you had you had somebody in the last Hagilgulim, you owed him some money. He comes to you, give him a haircut, he drives you crazy, he doesn't tip you. Could have been you fixing your tikkun like that with him. You don't know. All the people that you meet. Right? So the work is a blessing. To a certain extent. But a person who Hashem knows as Rav Avigdor Miller, that he will learn Torah in his free time, Hashem won't give him all of the parnasa. And by the way, I tested it once. For myself. I said, Hashem, I don't want to work, I want to learn. Then I had free time and I didn't learn. That day I didn't learn.
Really?
Why? Hashem was saying, don't mess with me. Don't try to make a plan better than mine.
Really?
The work is healthy. Of course it's healthy. It's a very healthy thing.
No, I'm saying you did.
That day, I didn't learn. ואם לא תיקן הרוח, צריך שיתגלגל כמה פעמים. הנפש עם הרוח. So let's say a person got his nefesh and ruach, didn't fix the ruach. Now the nefesh and the ruach will come back all the time in the Hagilgulim until he finishes his ruach. ואז ימות ויחזור להתגלגל עם הנשמה, as we said, עד שיתקנו שלושתם, until all three will fix their job, their tachlis. ואז אין לו צורך עוד להתגלגל כלל, כי בהיות גם הנשמה נתקנת, הרי הוא אדם שלם כנודע. Once you get your nefesh, ruach and neshama, you're a complete human being, you don't have to come back in a Gilgul. What about your chaya? Chaya, do you have to die to get your chaya? So there's two understandings. Number one understanding is, some people don't get a chaya. They're always in the world of Beriah, Yitzirah, and Asiyah. They never get to Atzilut. That's one understanding. So once you have your nefesh, ruach, neshama, you're complete.
Who gets chayat really? It's very
Chaya,
few. Very few.
People who get chaya, there's always somebody in your shorish that has the chaya.
Really?
Always. You don't come from a shorish that doesn't have a chaya and a yichida.
No,
Right?
Yichida no one has.
Right. For example, the Ari is going to tell us in Hagdamat Tet, in the 9th chapter, there is a shorish of neshamot that they never marry their soulmates. They never marry their soulmates.
I know
They always have to get from like
musical chairs.
it's like, for example, like remember Shaul, the Shevet Binyamin, they chotef, they like that. Or for example, the Ari brings the shorish. Why? Those women from that shorish, they're on very high level. They're all yechidas basically. They could only come when Mashiach comes. What shorish neshama is that? Chur, the son of Miriam, the one that died at Kiddush Hashem. Moshe's nephew, the one who was holding his hands while they were going, him and Aharon. And also some people from the shorish of Aharon, since Chur and Aharon are very similar to one another. They're both shorish Hevel, right? Chur and Aharon both come from Haran, right? Haran is a shorish of Hevel. So both of them, they're very rare for them to marry their true soulmates. So who do they marry then?
Other people.
Other people's soulmates, guys who lost their soulmate. And then when Mashiach comes, they'll be reunited.
They're true.
You don't have to marry the woman that's your soulmate in her body. It could be she could die, and her neshama will come in a ibur in a woman. It doesn't have to be reborn. You understand what I'm saying? It come in an ibur, in an impregnation. Okay? So the Ar Neshamot, they're just yichidot. They're very high level, like the source of Chur, the son of Miriam. All the Nekevot, says the Ari, they don't come out. Okay? So there is like that. But most people, nefesh, ruach, neshama. Nefesh, ruach, neshama.
Most people already said never complete
In
their
our
nefesh.
days. In our days already. In our days. But you could be zocher, we learned, Hagdama to tzaddik's ruach. And then you'll be together with him in his mechitza. Remember we learned that?
Right. But
Sure.
then in the end we still have
But
to...
yeah, because you rather be with your ruach than to be with a tzaddik's ruach. So you rather be reunited with your own family than spend time in yeshiva. Unless in yeshiva you have your own shorsh neshama over there. How do you know? Okay, let's do one more paragraph and we'll call it a night. אבל צריך שתדע, יש לנו one thing says the Ari HaKadosh. כי כאשר נתקנה הנפש, וחז ואחר כך לבוא בגלגול, once the nefesh is fixed, it's done, it's תיקון, it comes back in a reincarnation. כדי לקחת את הרוח שלה, to take its רוח, he's the rightful owner, he's the rightful בת זוג. כדי לתקן גם אותו, so it can also be fixed, the רוח, to be completed. הנה אם באותו גלגול, יחטא האדם איזה חטא, אין פגם ההוא פוגם בנפש כדי שנאמר שצריכה עוד הנפש שהוא להתגלגל פעם אחרת יחידית לתקן הדרך הנזכר. If a person comes back in a gilgul as a nefesh, he fixed his nefesh, now he gets his ruach, the nefesh is fixed. It came back a couple of times, now he gets the ruach, right? The ruach is not fixed, and the ruach does averot. It doesn't affect the nefesh. It doesn't ruin the nefesh. If you would say it would ruin the nefesh, and the davar sof. And the davar sof. So how does it not ruin the nefesh? What do we have to say? That the nefesh is not there as the real host of the body. The real host is the ruach. The nefesh is just tagging along to be its foundation, like an ibur. And since it's an ibur at the start of the person's life, it's very similar to a gilgul, but it's not a gilgul. You understand? It's called a ibur hadome legilgul. But it's not a true gilgul and it's not a true ibur. Why is not a true ibur impregnation? Because it comes at the start of a person's life. Why is it not a true gilgul? Because it doesn't get the sins of the ruach. You get it? That way Hashem fixes the tikkun much faster. לפי שכיוון שיש שם רוח, הנה הפגם הוא פוגם ברוח לבדו. The pagam will only go on the ruach. The guy fixed his nefesh. What? He came back 5 times to fix his nefesh. He's going to get the pagam of his ruach now? And the davar sof. לכן אם יצטרך איזה גלגולים אחרים כדי לתקן את הרוח, באים נפש ורוח ביחד, ומתגלגלים שניהם עד שישתלם תיקונם. That's why the nefesh could come back with the ruach a couple of times. Why? First of all, he likes his ruach. It's his other half. It's like a husband and a wife. 2 pieces of a puzzle. Second of all, he doesn't get its pagam, but he does get its mitzvot. So he does get more reward, but he won't get the ruach's pagams. ואז ייפטר האדם ויתגלגל עוד הפעם. וגם הנשמה יתגלגל if he finishes his ruach, עד שישתלם תיקון הנשמה, until his neshama is complete, which is very easy to fix a neshama. Right? The ikar of a neshama is kavanot, by the way. The way to fix your neshama is kavanot. How much kavanah you put in the
neshama is here, that's why.
Exactly. Ruach is the spirit.
Torah. Nefesh is the liver.
There's the liver. Vodka. Blood.
Meat.
Ta'ava. This person who's over his ta'avot, he's... But you see...
That's how we know we don't...
Yeah, of course. How do you know you're fixing yourself? I told this to you guys when we used to learn. If you feel like you're able to take upon yourself more, that's a sign that you're leveling up. Right? A guy who Yom Kippur comes, takes upon himself a mitzvah, and he fails. That means that he didn't level up. Maybe nitznetsbo, a little spark was inside of him, but he lost it. But a person who takes upon himself a chumrah, for example, I've told you guys many times in my shiurim that I took upon myself a long time ago, 2 years ago, not to eat or drink coffee or food. Not that I ate food ever before shacharit, before thing. Water is allowed. Shulchan Aruch says water is allowed. Lo ma'aleh v'lo morid. And Baruch Hashem, I was able to keep it. Unless I don't feel well, then I have to have a little bit of coffee. You understand? Or a person takes it upon himself, it's a big chumrah, but it's a good chumrah. Not to eat meat in people's houses. It's a good chumrah. You don't know what the person does. Rabbi, I promise you, it's Bet Yosef, you know those... Bet Yosef.
How is it possible, like in a community like ours, everybody inviting each other?
Yeah.
Shashlich, how?
Believe it or not,
yeah.
A couple of times I went to Yeshua, this, that, they offered me food.
Okay, this is a couple of times, but sometimes
Lately, I'm saying. Lately. To be a little chashash, you know? Even halachically speaking, you could trust in the Shomer Shabbat, this, that, or Ovadia says. Plus, it's a good chumrah, you know? Maybe you're not there yet, but it's a chumrah. Or a chumrah to wear tzitzit all the time. It's a chumrah. Am I right or wrong? It's a chumrah. To say brachot out loud is a chumrah. Not to mizman kriyat shema. It's not a chumrah, it's a mitzvah. Unfortunately, it became something that people to learn Torah all your free time. That's just your obligation. That's your obligation. Let's finish the paragraph. And same thing, he says like this: if a person comes back with his nefesh and ruach and they're fixed, and now he has a neshama, you gotta fix the neshama. If the neshama sins, the neshama is the real host of the body.
The ruach and nefesh
they don't touch the avera, don't affect them. Mitzvot they get. They do level up, but the neshama doesn't affect them in the averot. We'll end here for today. We're in Hagdama Bet, beginning of the paragraph. Hine lifamim yihyeh. You know what I realized is the second time we're doing this Hagdama, and I'm much stronger and able to explain it.
It's been like 3 years.
But still, even after 3 years.